The Human Algorithm, Episode 1, The Institute Shadow. They called it a clinic, a place for healing, but behind its white walls and polite letters, the Tavistock Institute of Psychological Research hid a different ambition. Founded in 1921, its mission wasn't just to study the human mind, it was to engineer it. A new frontier of science that wanted to map not only how people think, but how to make them think differently. I keep asking myself, how far would they go to understand obedience, and when does understanding turn into control? The records say their work was rooted in compassion, helping soldiers haunted by war, civilians broken by trauma, and minds fractured by grief. But history has a way of writing mercy into manipulation. Names like Ewan Cameron, Donald Hebb, and the Tavistock Group echo through those early corridors. Their studies, sleep deprivation, sensory isolation, induced amnesia, all in the name of progress. The same progress that whispered into the ear of propaganda, that found its way into classrooms, advertisements, and television screens. The same science that taught governments how to make the masses believe. They learned that the human psyche isn't a fortress, it's clay. Memory can be rewritten. Emotion can be manufactured. And fear is the most efficient teacher of all. Fear can rewire a civilization faster than logic ever could. So I wonder, when they built their experiments, who were they really testing? The patients or humanity itself? Because once they understood how the mind breaks, they learned how to rebuild it in any image they wanted. From the films of the 1930s to the slogans of the 1950s, their findings took form in light and sound. Every flicker on a movie screen, every melody in an advertisement, each one a test, a trigger, a way to guide behavior without force. We called it entertainment. They called it influence, and influence became the new currency of control. Even today, their fingerprints remain on the glass of every glowing screen. The formula hasn't changed, just the tools. Where once they studied hypnosis, now we scroll ourselves into trance. Where once they measured obedience with shock and suggestion, now algorithms study what keeps us watching. They no longer need to shock the body when they can soothe the mind into submission. Maybe that's the real legacy of Tavistock, a blueprint for invisible authority. A model of how to shape belief so well that the subjects never resist because they want to obey. And maybe we've mistaken freedom for choice, not realizing that the options we're given were designed to keep us within the same invisible perimeter. But here's where the question turns inward. If our perception has been designed, what part of us is truly free? How much of what we think is choice, and how much is programming written through generations of repetition, trauma, and distraction? We grow up believing in myths meant to comfort us. Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the stories that teach trust before we even understand deception. They condition faith, reward obedience, and normalize illusion. By the time we're old enough to question them, we've already learned to need them. It's not about the myth itself, okay? It's about the reward system behind it. Be good and you'll be loved. Be obedient and you'll be rewarded. Every culture has its version of this contract. Maybe that's why people cling to categories. Zodiac signs, personality tests, political tribes, diagnoses, anything that explains why we are the way we are. It's comforting to have a box to live in, but what if those boxes were built by the same architects who studied how to keep us divided, predictable, and manageable? Every label makes it easier to sell, to persuade, to predict. They said it was science, but what if it was design? I think about Erickson's stages of development, how every missed connection, every childhood wound leaves an imprint on the adult we become. The systems knew that. They counted on it because a wounded child grows into a consumer searching for wholeness. A society full of unhealed people will always buy the illusion of control. Maybe that's why addiction isn't just a habit, it's a symptom of something way deeper. Addiction wears many faces: the bottle, the screen, the job, the mirror, the need to be seen. It's all the same wound, echoing in different disguises. It's the pain we try to medicate, not with healing, but with distraction, because distraction doesn't demand accountability. Healing does. And accountability is the one thing this system doesn't teach. So maybe the question isn't who built the Institute. Maybe it's why do we still live in it? Why do we still follow the same patterns, repeat the same cycles, build new cages and call them progress? Addiction, distraction, consumption, they all feed the same machine, a $1 trillion system built on our need to escape the very pain it profits from. The more we run, the more we're controlled. The more we consume, the emptier we become. And as long as we keep blaming others for our programming, we'll never rewrite it. Awareness is rebellion, healing is resistance, and responsibility, real, uncomfortable, personal accountability, is the revolution they never predicted. The Institute shadow isn't a building anymore. It's in every unexamined habit, every unchallenged belief, every reflex to point a finger instead of a mirror. But maybe that's where freedom begins, not in breaking the system, but in breaking its reflection inside ourselves. Because the real experiment never ended. It just became the world we live in. And every day we get to decide whether we're still part of it or if we're finally ready to wake up.